Smith for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this hearing is absolutely astonishing to me. Your star witness is a pathetic grifter, a documented liar. He comes here to tell us that in 2014, Justice Alito told a dinner companion how a Supreme Court would rule in the Hobby Lobby case. But his source vehemently denies it. The justice vehemently denies it. There are no contemporaneous notes or recordings, and not a single newspaper can corroborate this, although they desperately tried. So the testimony is impeached by the very sources the grifter claims to have had, and there's nothing to support his claims. And he didn't think to share it publicly until 8 years later, when the left began a concerted effort to smear Justice Alito for the Dobbs decision and to delegitimize the court as an institution because they intend to pack it. Meanwhile, the Judiciary Committee has no interest in some fundamental questions like who leaked the draft of the Dobbs decision, or why isn't the Justice Department enforcing the law to protect Supreme Court justices from intimidation at their own homes, or did the Justice Department really interfere in the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections? Those are important questions. This is a theater of the absurd. And it's how the left operates, outrageous and slanderous claims, and when they're thoroughly debunked, they just move on to the next target. Mr. Chairman, I am sincerely embarrassed for you. I'm sincerely embarrassed for your colleagues. This hearing puts a punctuation mark on the whole sad proceedings of this committee. My problem in asking questions is simple facts are so damning against the Democrats as to make any further commentary pointless. So res ipsa loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. I'll simply ask Mr. Pauletta for any thoughts that he has in my remaining time.
Mr. McClintock, thanks for the opportunity. You know, it's just, as I said in my opening statement, we're left with relying on the credibility of Mr. Schenk's word. And I noticed, because of course he didn't turn his testimony in until 10 minutes before the hearing, when I think the rest of us did the night before by 6 o'clock. So we couldn't cross-check it before the hearing. He says there was an interesting storyline in one of his comments, and I pulled up a Christian Newswire story from, I think, the day of the Hobby Lobby, well, it was of the decision, but he's referencing the fact that on the day of the oral argument, he claims in here that, I'll read it, on the day their case was argued before the justices, Reverend Schenck led the Greens and the Hahn family, owners of Conestoga Wood Specialties, for an unprecedented prayer service in the Supreme Court dining room just before they all entered the courtroom. I thought that was impossible to be having a prayer service on a day of oral argument in the dining room, okay? The Supreme Court is a pretty locked down place in general. When they're doing oral arguments, it's very locked down for things like that. If you look at his testimony today, he says, on March 25th, I attended the oral argument in the Hobby Lobby cave, having obtained a reserved seat from the Marshal office. Earlier that day, I had convened a prayer service in the Supreme Court's cafeteria dining area, which attorneys for both Hobby Lobby had attended. So he's changed it completely from this behind-the-scenes sort of access of going into the dining room of the Supreme Court to the cafeteria, which is literally open to the public when you're there. So again, this is, you know, just, there's so many of these things. And again, going back to what Congressman Jordan had brought up about this, his book, which I saw this weekend, about how he was so happy that Chief Justice Rehnquist had said Reverend Paul Schenck as he called up the case. And it's a complete lie. Now, if you look at Mr. Schenk's book, he had to have looked back at that because it has the caption of the case. Like, he had to go back and look at what was actually said in order to write his book. So back in 2018, when this book came out, he was looking, and he literally invented that scene, but he put that word in there for Chief Justice Rehnquist to say, so we could support his storyline that somehow he had overcome all these naysayers and gotten the court to put Reverend in his name. So that's why he's not a reliable narrator of the truth, as I say.
But
He
au
adds
contraire,
things.
he's the Democrat's star witness in this. It's upon his ridiculous testimony they based this entire hearing, their last hearing of this session. I think it's a reflection on them more than anything. And as I said, I think that it's a fitting way to end a pathetic session of this Congress and the work of this Judiciary Committee. And with that, I yield back.